Static cuts to a black screen with white text. It reads, "On August 17, 1952, something impossible happened. A town disappeared without a trace. The camera pans away slowly as the text fades out. A map of the state of Kansas begins to fade in from the bottom left corner. It zooms in on a town named Ashley. This is Ashley calling emergency services. Please respond. Something has happened. I repeat, something has happened. I don't know what it was, but it took the children first. His face is wrinkled and lined, his eyes distant and haunted. As it comes into focus, the words are seen to be blacked out. The document is labeled Ashley, Kansas Incident Report. The title above is simply top secret. It reads, Ashley, Kansas 1952, gone but not forgotten. Or was it ever really there? The scene fades to black. A low hum fills the speakers. The old man's voice begins to speak again, this time as a faint whisper. After the sun came up, military trucks began arriving from Fort Riley. They set up a roadblock at the edge of town. No one was allowed in or out. The army men went door to door. I watched for my truck. They seemed to be looking for something or someone. I don't know what. The soldiers returned to their trucks. Their faces were grim. I saw them take photographs. Then they drove away. The entire area was cordoned off for days, but when the army left, they didn't find anything. Or if they did, they weren't talking about it. The officers wouldn't say what they were doing or why they'd been there. I never saw any bodies, never saw anyone get into a helicopter or onto a truck. No one from the outside knew what had happened in Ashley. And those of us who did were sworn to secrecy. The old man pauses. His voice fades in and out, becoming more and more distorted. They tried to cover it up. They wanted to pretend it never happened. It was easier that way, but every night I hear the screams. I feel the ground shake, and I can still see the children standing by the sink hole, reaching out their hands. And when I look into their eyes, I see my own face staring back at me, older and weaker. They're waiting for me to join them, and someday soon, I will. The old man's voice fades out completely. The photograph is slightly distorted as if viewed through a funhouse mirror. The image flickers like an old projector. The man's voice is a raspy whisper. Others believe it was something far more ancient and hungry. But most agree it's best not to ask too many questions. After all, there's a reason why no one from the government has ever given a straight answer. If they did, would you believe them? Would you believe me? Because what happened in Ashley, Kansas is not supposed to happen in our world. Not unless you want to wake up in the middle of the night to an unnatural blue light in the sky. To the ground rumbling like thunder, even though there's no storm. To the silence afterward, knowing that your town, your family, your friends, they're gone. And whatever took them is still out there looking for more. He speaks slowly as if each word is a great effort. I remember it well. It was a clear night, not a cloud in the sky. I was visiting my daughter and grandchildren in town. It was John's birthday, my oldest grandson. He was 6 years old. We were having a small party. Just as we lit the candles on the cake, the lights went out. I didn't think much of it. I went to the window to see if I could spot the problem when the house began to shake violently. It wasn't a quake. The windows rattled in their frames. Then the sky outside turned a sickly red color. The basement door flew open. A moment later, the ground cracked. I heard screaming, but it wasn't the children's voices. It was something from beneath the ground, something angry. The vibrations grew stronger. Then everything went quiet, dead silent. That's when I knew something terrible had happened. The silence was the worst part. When I got outside, I could see a deep gash in the ground where the house had been. It looked like a giant hand had reached up and torn the house from its foundation. I stumbled to my feet and ran to the nearest neighbor's house. Mrs. Henderson's lights were still on. I banged on the door, but there was no answer. The windows were dark. I peered inside and saw the television flickering. It was the only sound, the only light for miles. The television was on, but there was no one there. I don't want to sound crazy, but I swear it was like the town had vanished. The old man pauses, his voice cracking with emotion. I found a sheriff's cruiser on the road leading out of town. The engine was still running. The keys were in the ignition. The radio was on. It was tuned to the National Weather Service, but there was nothing on the air. It was like the entire town had been sucked into the ground. Where did they go? What happened to them? The old man falls silent. The voice is clearly trembling, desperate for help. Then the line cuts out suddenly. After about a minute of silence, another voice cuts through. It sounds inhuman and raspy. It doesn't seem to be coming from this world. The voice continues until the end of the recording. It's unintelligible. Some say they weren't human. A calm yet eerie voice narrates. In the early hours of August 17, 1952, a small town in Kansas named Ashley ceased to exist. At exactly 3:28 a.m., nearby residents reported seeing a bright blue flash light up the sky. Moments later, the earth trembled. When first responders tried to reach the town, Ashley was gone. Literally gone. The scene cuts to a highway that has been cut in half, with one side descending into a massive sinkhole. An aerial drone shot shows just how deep the hole is and how it completely surrounds the missing town. It looks like something straight out of a disaster movie. There was no explosion, no storm, no earthquake recorded that night. The map glitches and cuts out. The narrator says, but what happened next was even more chilling. At 3:51 a.m., police radios across the region picked up a strange transmission. Some say it was a distress call. Others say it was something far more sinister. The old radio transmission begins again. This time it's clear that multiple people are speaking at once. They're shouting, their voices panicked and distressed. The voices become more and more frenzied as the transmission ends abruptly. This is Ashley calling emergency services. Please respond. Something has happened. I repeat, something has happened. I don't know what it was, but it took the children first. Where the town once stood was now just a vast black void, a gaping hole in the earth, like the ground had swallowed Ashley whole. The scene cuts to old radio static sound. Then a distorted voice cuts through. This is all we have from this broadcast. It doesn't last long. The scene cuts back to the map. Now the entire county surrounding Ashley is missing, not just the town itself. The scene cuts to a faded black and white photograph of an old man. The scene cuts to a computer screen displaying a faded government document. The scene cuts to a dark screen. The faint whispers begin again. Some say it was a government experiment. The final text fades into view. Thanks for watching.